So let me put it like this. So instead of another depressing Valentine's Day spent working in the garage on your car by yourself, meanwhile, of course, all your couple friends are posting pictures on social media, rubbing it in, obviously. You too now, though. Okay, you too, if you choose to marry your car, can now say you're spending Valentine's Day with your significant other. And it's even better than that, because you're still making progress on your project car. I mean, come on, that's brilliant.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Loaded show for you today. Jim Miller joins me later on to talk a little bit more about his bid for city council as a car guy. We also talk about how an Arizona senator tried to claim immunity from speeding tickets, which I would have been fine with if it was immunity for all of us. But it was just him. So we're going to get Jim's take on that and more. I'm also going to talk about how nobody at Chevy is apparently listening to, well, this show or anyone at NASCAR, because Ford made this EV NASCAR thing a couple of weeks ago. I talked about it. I talked about why it would be the downfall of NASCAR. And Chevy comes along this week and makes one too. So we're going to discuss that. The Honda-Nissan merger officially dies. Everyone is happy about it, except for Nissan. And finally, a man marries his 1971 Ford on Valentine's Day. We're going to get to, in theory, all of that in the next hour here on the Automotive ADHD Show. Now, of course, you can catch the show on video, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, as well as Spotify, which does video now. And you can hear the show all across the radio in southern Colorado. I'm here out of my home base on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer, but you can catch it on 100.7 The Word, as well as 91.7 KLZR. Now, another week has gone by, and my Subaru still runs. Yes, it still runs. I know, this is just an update. I figured you might want to know. This is actually 300% better, at least 300% better. I did the math, than my last Subaru. So I guess that's good. I guess it's good that the car is still running. But Jim Miller is not just sending me Subaru memes now. No. I talked about how he was sending me endless, relentless Subaru memes. He has leveled that up a notch. Just a little bit, because he is now giving me Subaru-themed gifts. Yes, gifts. I actually have one right here. If you're watching on video, this is a gasket set, specifically head gaskets. But I've also got valve seals in here. I get some new intake manifold gaskets and exhaust manifold gaskets. All of the above. But really, the important part in here is those head gaskets. And Jim Miller gave this to me, suggested that I keep it in my trunk because, you never want to be stranded on the side of the road without a spare set of head gaskets or valve seals. So anyway, so far, so good on the Subaru front. I still don't like the touchscreen. I still don't like the infotainment system, but I still really like that it is a brand new car with a turbocharged 4-cylinder, a manual transmission, and all-wheel drive for less than $30,000. I am still happy about that part. I currently regret nothing. So anyway, that is my Subaru update. Also, Valentine's Day apparently happened earlier this week. Anyway, let's talk about S2000. So this was on Jalopnik. I love perusing Jalopnik. I'm a frequent reader on the website. It is a car publication if you're not familiar with it. And one of the writers on Jalopnik, Colin Woodward, posted an interesting little op-ed about cheap S2000s. Here's a headline here. It's a $15,000 Honda S2000 with one photo and obvious mods. What's the worst that could happen? So he's debating buying this S2000. And as a connoisseur of S2000s, well, actually not really. I'm good at breaking mine. I do have some thoughts on this here. But he makes a point that this is possibly the cheapest clean title S2000 for sale in our Lord's year 2025. And it very possibly is. And you know what's crazy? What's crazy about this entire thing here, as I adjust my headset here on video, I got these cool little in-ear monitors, and they keep falling out. So bear with me right there. Anyway, so S2000s, long gone are the days of finding a cheap S2000. It's just not going to happen anymore. It really isn't. They've become expensive. Parts for them have become expensive. And really finding a cheap one with a clean title can really be a chore. So what he did, he said, okay, this is probably the cheapest, possibly the cheapest clean title one for sale. Should you buy it? Allegedly, this one's got 125,000 miles, which isn't actually terrible for a 23-year-old sports car, by the way. But it has some questionable things done to it. You can tell that it's been modded. Also, the dealer who has this listed has only one picture of it. You don't know what the interior's like. You don't know what the engine bay's like. You certainly don't know what the underside of the car is like. And I'm here to say this could be a really, really good, bad idea. Does that make sense? A really good, bad idea? I'll elaborate, because this actually really reminds me of my experience with an S2000. In fact, if you're watching on video, YouTube and Rumble, my S2000 is sitting back here, not driving, but it is running. And in fact, Brian and I did some more work on it, on the tune for it earlier this week. And you'll see it sitting there with a K24 under the hood. That's not the stock engine anymore. But, and there's a reason for all of that. So my car, my S2000, I bought in 2018. I bought it in 2018 at, what was the price? $10,000. $10,000 with a clean title, mind you. And at the time, this is why Colin's story here reminds me of this, because at the time, it was the cleanest, well, the cheapest clean title S2000 in the country. So no salvage, none of that. Doesn't mean it hadn't been in a wreck before. It just means that hasn't been reported. I'll get to that. But anyway, what I did is I decided I wanted an S2000 and I wanted a cheap one for some reason. Probably because I didn't like how much S2000s were fetching even then in 2018. So after exhausting all the options locally, I started looking at dealer auctions. Now, if you're unfamiliar, dealer auctions, they aren't just salvage auctions. They are auctions where dealers buy and sell vehicles. Maybe they've got a vehicle on the lot that's just not selling well. Send it off to auction. Somebody else will buy it. Maybe they need some more inventory. Go to auction. Buy a few cars. That's how a lot of this works. Problem is, you got to be a dealer 99% of the time to bid at these things. So I found myself a car broker who said he would go to the auctions and bid on my behalf. And you know what they say about car brokers, which is that every time a car broker dies, an angel gets their wings. But is what it is. He did help me get this car, and I bid on it through him, sight unseen. I was here in Colorado Springs, and the car was out in Florida. And I had like 5 pictures to go off of. And I said, yeah, go for it. It looks great. 3 months go by. Of course, trying to ship a car cheap takes a long time, by the way. I don't know if you've tried that before. 3 months go by, and I get a shiny, new to me S2000 on my doorstep. And immediately there were problems. Okay, so firstly, the cross member up in the front had a big old notch in it where an intercooler had previously been. It was missing heat shields in the engine bay that would have normally gotten in the way of a turbo. Okay. The engine mounts, the motor mounts were all dead. The ECU had obviously been, had something spliced into the harness where the ECU went, like a piggyback ECU or a piggyback type of device. And it had been rear-ended. Yeah, the back of the car had been repaired somewhat poorly, actually. And that wasn't on the Carfax. So all of these things being said, yes, you can find a cheap S2000. Yes, you can. Should you? Well, I've got more money into this S2000 and it still doesn't drive than if I had just bought a nice S2000. Do I regret it, though? Not necessarily. It's been a lot of fun. And, well, it just sits on jack stands most of the time. But anyway, the question is on this S2000 that Colin wrote about, should you buy it? Should you not? I don't know. Depends on your sense of adventure and how willing you are to have a car that doesn't run. So, hey, coming up after the break, we're talking to Jim Miller about his bid for city council. That's right here.
Some call him the Toyota God. Others say he ran for mayor.
Introduce you to the candidates running for mayor. So today it's Jim Miller.
One of your priorities that you've laid out is fixing the roads in Colorado Springs. Jim Miller.
Mr. Miller, you also have 30 seconds.
That was Jim Miller, just a guy.
All we know is he's just a guy with more cars than friends. Jim Miller is on Automotive ADHD.
Yes, he is. That is Jim Miller, just a guy. You know who he is. He now requires little to no introduction because, well, he has that awesome introduction right there.
Best intro ever.
I love it, Jim. I love it. Now, the problem is, so I've got this cool, fancy, schwanky intro for you.
Nice.
And it says that you ran for mayor. And now we're going to have to fix that now. We're going to have to update. As soon as I make a new intro for you, you go out and announce that you're running for city council now, and I got to change the whole intro.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
yes, I am.
Now tell me real quick a little bit about, again, in case people missed it last time you were on my show, about what you're running for, when they can vote, and all of that.
So, voting, the first mail-out ballot should be right around March 7th, I believe. Right around that time. Up till April 1st is the time to vote. But, you know, I'm real big on a lot of freedoms, if you will. I guess is the best way to put it if you want.
Yeah.
You know, I'm all about private property rights. We know your cars, your vehicles, your land, your stuff. Do your thing. Be left alone. You're not breaking no rules. Who cares? Have a good time. I'm kind of sick and tired of your high utilities and stuff. Mm-hmm. This doesn't make any sense. I got no problem with renewables, but you don't charge the rest of us half to death on it. And then on top of it, too, those access fees, that really bothers me. Just charge me usage. So I'm real big on that. It is what it is. I'm just tired of the same old career politicians doing the same old career politician thing. You ask them a question. Oh, look into it. I'm above you. I don't have time for you. I'm so busy. I need more pay. I'm a politician. You're like, no, it's good. I'm good. I'll look into it from now on. That's basically how it's going with everything.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, as car guys, at least, and some of the folks listening here might be, some of them might not be.
Good.
A lot of the folks on the podcast I know are because,
yes.
Well, they went out of their way to find an automotive podcast. So, you know, and they're, I think, very underrepresented when it comes to government. Yeah, on the national level, we've got SEMA. SEMA does a lot of advocacy for car guys, and they're not just the car show every year.
Yeah.
I mean, they do stuff year round. And if you ever heard of the RPM Act and any of those things, SEMA's behind all of that good stuff. We have that on the national level, but who do we have on the local level? And
it's nothing.
No one.
You look at it for as far as any city, any town, any society, any community. The most taxes and the most stuff paid is by what? It's paid by car people. Registrations, insurances, blah, 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 yada, yada. All the parts, all the things, all the taxes on all that stuff. And then also, like, number two people. I mean,
yeah,
anybody that's about the old Second Amendment, they're charged a lot, too. Taxes, this, that, fees, waiting, blah, 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 an extra charge to be back. We're charged a lot of money for just living life. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to get your take now, you know, as we discuss politics on the show as it relates to cars. But here's something interesting I want to get your take on and sort of your commentary on how public officials should be, perhaps. This happened in Arizona, and Arizona State Senator demands police erase speeding ticket, claims legislative immunity. Now, a lot of us have had a speeding ticket. Some of us have had more than one. Your host included in there, maybe, possibly. And we don't like speeding tickets.
I may or may not have more speeding tickets. Right?
I know you had that one red light camera at one point. I still have the picture as your profile.
I hate and despise those red light camera things and those speed trap things. Took the humanity right out of it, the thing destroying all of our communities.
Still your contact picture on my phone. Nice. I love it. It's going to stay there for forever. That picture of you, you're like, what? Anyway, having said that, though, a lot of us have had speeding tickets. Your average person has had a speeding ticket. Some people, car guys, we tend to get a little more. Is that because we're a little more lead-footed than some people? Or is that just because we drive interesting-looking cars that maybe attract a little more attention? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But the thing here, this, by the way, comes by way of Arizona Family, which is the CBS Channel 5 news affiliate out in Prescott, Prescott, Arizona. I hear they're weird. You don't say Prescott, you say Prescott. But
Prescott, like a biscuit?
Yeah, like a biscuit.
I live in Prescott.
Hey, I'll have to ask Wesley Kagan, friend of the show. He lives out there in Arizona.
Wesley does, that's right.
Yeah, he does. And anyway, what they're saying here is that this senator, basically, he got a ticket, and he was doing 48 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. So he was doing 18 over. He was given a civil citation, which, by the way, it's not criminal at that speed. There's a certain speed where it does become criminal.
Yeah.
That's going to vary state to state. But he basically says that after getting the ticket, files a thing and says, hey, I have legislative immunity because the legislator was in session at this time, and I don't have to pay this speeding ticket. And that doesn't sit right with me. I mean, even as a...
That should not sit right with you. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That's dumb. I don't get it. He ain't no better than nobody else. He's supposed to be a representative, which means lead by example or don't. They're not even leaders. They're representatives, supposed to be the part of the community, part of the people. We don't bend a knee to them. They're supposed to bend a knee to the community, to the people doing their stuff, what they need done. Not sitting here with some kind of nonsense like this. Oh, I'm better because of some elected position or something. No, we're good, dude. Pay your ticket, shut up, get out of the way. Start doing what you're supposed to do. All right? Look, I'm not about that, but was he pulled over by a people cop?
Yeah.
Okay, people cop. You had the humanity involved with it and everything, and the community. Pay your ticket, shut up, get out of the way. I don't care where you are from, Arizona, wherever. This guy's a joke.
Yep, and it's not the first time this has happened, by the way. This has happened at least in Arizona several times, in fact.
With the same guy?
No, different people. It seems like their state senators are a fan of this legislative immunity clause here that they've got. And, the thing that I don't understand is, I mean, right, again, we're all, car guys and we like cars, right? But, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place to put the pedal down, and it's usually not on the road. I'll put it that way. And the thing is, being a senator, being any politician, you are not above the people. Like you said, you represent the people. I would almost argue if I was in this position, if I was an elected representative and I got a ticket, a mild speeding ticket, I would have come out and said, hey, I'm going to pay this ticket and I'm going to donate a couple $100 to this fund, or I'm going to do something for it just to put a little more.
I think at least showing the people that you paid your ticket and you got a ticket and your people, that might have helped.
That's a first step.
That might have been a good way to do it. It's just like, when some of these, to me, some of these politicians always get like, oh, this or that. And I'm like, well, show me what you voted for on your ballot.
Yeah.
And they're, whoa. And I'm like, you're representing the people. What are you pushing? Kind of thing. I'm just saying a little more open book with all this stuff as a whole. That should have been on the front cover of everything. Anytime some politician gets a ticket or some kind of thing, everybody should know about it. These are supposed to be your representatives. They're not above us. This guy should just pay his ticket and shut up.
There was one representative, a state rep rather than a senator, state rep Paul Mosley in 2018 got 97 in a 55, which, by the way, earned him the this is a good nickname here. Earned him the nickname, the Leadfoot Lawmaker.
Leadfoot Lawmaker? He's probably the one helping making all the speed laws, too.
Yeah,
He's probably the guy going, hey, speed traps, we need them, except for me.
By the way, I believe he did not win his re-election after that, just for the record. I mean, generally speaking, whether you're a politician who's a automotive focused sort of person or not, being responsible in this sense is important, and also owning up to it. I mean, hey, that you were speeding in here. There's no contest to it. It's not like, oh, well, that's debatable if I actually... No, there's no argument if you were or weren't, okay? It's all on body camera. Yeah. It's all on all of that. I mean, doing the right thing and just stepping up and just paying the ticket. I think you should probably, as a civil servant, in a way, go even a step further, an extra gesture of, goodwill if you could. But granted, I mean, at the minimum, just be like, hey, you know what? I messed up. We're all people. You've had a speeding ticket.
Fallible. Yeah,
I've got a speeding ticket. I just paid it right here. Not trying to say, well, I'm
above the law and the system and the rules that I implement and enforce upon everybody and push on everybody. Yeah, no, I'm good, dude. Yeah, I'm good. It sounds like he wants to be some kind of king or something.
Now, what do you think? In your context here, being especially in city council, that makes you. You're like the ground level representative in your town, right? Like, I mean, sure, you can get in touch with your state rep. You can get in touch with your congressman, you can get in touch with your congressman here in District 5. We've got Jeff Crank. You can obviously email his office and all of that. But as a city councilman, you've got a little bit more of a duty there. You're more of a direct contact.
That's more on the dirt level of things. Yeah, right at the base level. Yeah. You should be a good example of it, in my opinion, regardless of positions or not. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. These people should pay their tickets. If any other elected officials or political representatives around here get a ticket, you better go pay it. As long as it's a person cop. I'm not too mad about you if it's a speed trap machine or a red light machine. I don't care about that crap.
Yeah, and we've said before on the show that we're pretty opposed, both of us, to the automated machines there.
How many times have we paid for all those cameras? And then they go, they're not constitutional. No, they're illegal or whatever little argument against them. And then they don't use them. And then they're like, we brought them back. And you're like, they just wait a number of times to do it, with bringing things back. If they don't like the result. Yeah. It seems to be kind of a trend, if you will. There's been quite a number of things I know here like that. They go, we didn't like what the result was with it. So we'll wait and push back for it again. Yeah. Again. And again, and again, till they get their little way.
Yeah, and, we've mentioned this before, too, on the show, how, like the speed cameras themselves, the speed camera vans, I went hard on that before. And, like, the fact that those vans cost, something like $70,000, why?
Go stop some real crime, okay? Yeah. Stop the thieves, the rapists, the pedos, the sex traffickers, all the bad stuff, the drugs. Stop the real crime. Quit investing law enforcement money on ticketing people that are working, man. I call them window tint cops. I hate that stuff, dude.
Absolutely. And I think, I like how you say, of course, by the way, if you're listening, you can catch Jim Miller as well, not just on this show, but on the radio during the week. He's regular. He's a mainstay on the Peak News. You can listen to that 3 to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursdays. Jim does the rant section there. But Jim, you say, what do you say at the end of every rant?
We want it better. We got to be better.
Want it better? Got to be better. I love that. I think that's a great saying on there. And of course, that's what you are talking about when you are now running as well for city council. We want it better. We got to be better. And this is how we can be better.
Local politics should just be local people doing local things,
Absolutely. And so, real quick, Jim, 20 seconds. Where can people find your campaign?
Jim Miller for Colorado.com. You can look it up on the interweb.
Easy. Find it. If you're in District 5, consider Jim Miller. If you're not, tell some friends. Hey, we got a car guy running for city council. So you're listening to Automotive ADHD. We'll be right back in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I am Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Hey, remember, you can send those car sounds into my show, Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD, for a chance to be featured here on the radio as well as on the video, and to have your chance to win some free stuff. The Automotive ADHD key tag, the Automotive ADHD sticker, all of the above. And again, you got to find that at Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. So you may have recalled just even a few weeks ago, I was talking about NASCAR and how NASCAR has made this idea that they might want to go EV. And so manufacturers are stepping up to the plate to build some NASCAR-ready EVs. And I did a whole monologue a couple of weeks ago about why this is a terrible idea. This is a horrible idea. And in fact, I don't think it'll work, not just because I'm being an EV hater. I'm just thinking about from an objective business perspective here. So I talked about that. And I guess nobody at NASCAR was listening, or if they were, they probably didn't care what I thought. But so Chevy now has come along and made a EV thing that they're calling a NASCAR, and they are calling it the Chevy Blazer EV R. Yeah, because having that R at the end there means it's a race car. And I have to say, this does come by way of Motor Trend, which, if you also recall, was it last week? Yeah, it was last week when I was talking about the EV charger. I had to cancel Motor Trend essentially as a whole. I mean, because they took the side that even though it doesn't have a V8, even though it can't do a burnout, even though it's not made in America, even though it has 4 doors, all of the above, that somehow the Dodge Charger EV is still a muscle car, even though it is literally nothing that a muscle car is. And we went over the whole definition of a muscle car, right? I mean, I proclaimed myself as the foremost authority on the matter. So basically, I mean, Motor Trend, it might as well be dead now too, along with the Charger, along with all of them. I'm not taking any prisoners here, okay? I'm being ruthless in how we have to approach this here. But they do report, Justin Banner at Motor Trend reports that this EVR, Blazer EVR, features 1,300 horsepower, which is pretty healthy. And it's a tri-motor powertrain. So it's got a single motor in the front and 2 motors in the rear, one for each wheel, and a liquid-cooled 78 kilowatt-hour battery pack. How many? What is 78 kilowatt hours in gallons? I don't know. So meaningless. It's a meaningless measurement is what it is. So anyway, so this car, I have some problems with it for conducting some, I would say, blasphemy, and some of it is the same as the Ford Mustang Mach-E EV from the other week, which is that A, it's an EV already, that's already out there, but B, it's that it is an SUV. I mean, what is with turning these SUVs and these crossovers into race cars? I don't get that, because now granted, they couldn't model it after the Camaro because there is no Camaro anymore. Chevy doesn't have a muscle car in their lineup. Yeah, they have the Corvette. And the Corvette, you could argue that it's a muscle car in many ways. It is rear drive, it is V8, but it's also mid-engined. So mid-engine, I do believe, precludes this. This wasn't in my official definition before, so we're updating the definitions, but mid-engine does preclude it from being a muscle car. It is a sports car at that point, a supercar, whatever. So, the fact is that Chevy goes, well, we need to make an EV NASCAR. What do we make it look like? Well, we don't have a Camaro anymore, and it doesn't make sense to do it of the Corvette. Also, because we do race the actual Corvette and other types of racing, let's make it look like the Blazer. And for some of my older listeners who might not be following with what the Blazer currently is, the Blazer now isn't like the K5 Blazers of old. A cool body on frame, essentially a short truck, essentially a truck-based platform. It's not that anymore. It's literally an SUV. It might as well be a Chevy Traverse, whatever. It is just not even a real SUV even. A real SUV would still be something body on frame, like the 4Runner or whatever. No, it is a crossover. It is a boring, pedestrian, simple crossover. And they put the Blazer badge on it. Now, granted, it could have been worse. They could have called it a Camaro, because that's what Ford's doing. Ford is making an SUV and then calling it a Mustang, even though it has nothing to do with the Mustang. So Chevy, to their credit, made the Blazer and at least didn't call it a Camaro now, because, oh man, I don't know what sort of world we would live in if that happened. But The problem with these race cars, these manufacturers, is they're going to these EV platforms and then they're going to these SUV platforms. And they're doing that because that's what they're producing. That's what their regular cars are. They want to see, they want people to, it's like the olden days of racing. Race on Sunday, sell on Monday. Well, the cars they're selling on Monday are crossovers, unfortunately. And the thing is, though, like nobody, let me put it this way. You have a couple of kids walking with their mom or dad, down the sidewalk next to a street, and a SUV crossover thing like a Blazer drives by. Does the kid go, Mommy, look, it's a Blazer? No, of course not. They don't do that. Now, maybe if it had been a Camaro and it was loud and kind of cool, sure, maybe they would have. Maybe the kid would have done that. But now, the excitement that gets gearheads into stuff like this, who, by the way, are typically your race fans. The fact is that you, as a racing organization, for example, you want to win, right? You do want to win, and EVs are fast. Critics of my position will say, yeah, well, the EV's faster. Yes, I know the EV is faster. That's not the point. The point is, yes, you want to win the races, but you also want to provide a good spectator sport, fill up all of those stands at the racetrack. And no one is going to watch, for one, SUVs and electric SUVs, no less, race around a track. It's not going to be exciting. You're going to lose that portion of it. You're going to lose that fan base. And that fan base, they're the people who don't just go to the races. They buy your merchandise. They stream your races on TV. They follow your stuff. They follow all your social media. That fan base represents a huge amount of your actual business. It's not just, yes, the people who show up to a race. It is much greater than that. And you risk losing them. And you might say, oh, well, people are just going to have to get used to EVs being the thing now. No, they're not going to. They're going to move to the next most exciting thing that they can find. That's more entertaining. That's what they're going to do. So anyway, I only got about 2 minutes to get to this here before we talk about how a man married his 71 Ford, which we will get to that here in just a second. But the Nissan-Honda merger, by the way, is dead. It has officially been called off, and completely. I guess they never were able to agree on what role each would play in this company. And now, if it was really a merger to Nissan's benefit, if you've been following this for the past really couple months now, this merger was proposed that it would really, again, I think benefit only Nissan. I think that's part of why this failed, is it's very one-sided. Nissan's in the hole. They need help. And they said, Honda, please bail us out, help us, buy us so we can survive. And I think that's been part of the problem. I think a lot of what Nissan offers is not going to translate over to Honda very well necessarily. I think that Nissan certainly has a lot of truck focus and SUV focus right now. Obviously, I'm trying to blank on the Nissan's truck name. That's good of me to do that. But you know what I'm talking about. They have a lot of that, and that doesn't really line up well with Honda's business model, I would say. Obviously, they have other cars. They've got their consumer cars and stuff. But interesting to see that this has been called off. This is probably better for, Honda in this case, to not have the dead weight of Nissan lying around. So, hey, coming up after the break, we're going to talk about marrying your car. This is a true love story coming up right here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere.
You can't go past a Falcon Ute. It's the one with the answers you got to agree with, the comfort and style of a Ford XD. With an alloy head 6 under the hood, economy just has to be good. Falcon vans and Utes you can't go past, with heavy steel floors reinforced to last. So when you're prettied up and going to town, your Falcon Ute won't put you down. Falcon Utes and vans, nothing else comes close.
He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Reciting his vows, he said he'd always stick with her, even through the tough times, and he says there have been a few disagreements, a few fights, and a few makeups.
I will keep the spark between us alive. No matter how many times I have to jumpstart you.
Now, he has been married already for 30 years to wife Rachel, and he has 2 kids, but this isn't an affair. His family is fully aware of the relationship that's blossomed in the garage.
I can share him, yeah, as long as she stays down the shed.
Giz, I think every member of the public today will be asking why.
Why not? Look at her. She's beautiful. I love her. It means a lot to me. So does my wife. But yeah, no, it's a very special day.
So, firstly, I need to ask, why was the video upside down? Why was that upside down? Okay. Yeah, my producer is telling me that it's not upside down. That's just how everything looks in Australia. All right, got it. Secondly, 3 cars? Come on, man. Those are rookie numbers right there. And thirdly, I think this is great, by the way. I really do. Now, this, by the way, the car, if you couldn't see the lovely bride right there, the bride was a very blue, like a metallic, almost a metallic turquoise, 1971 Ford Falcon. Of course, the Australians love their Ford Falcons. The Falcon was arguably a lot more popular out there in Australia, and it wasn't really the same Falcon we got here in the United States. A little bit of a different car. But having said all of that, still a very gorgeous machine. And if you were watching the upside down video, you might have noticed everyone wearing headphones there. And I was a little confused by that at first, but it turns out that this was done as a stunt for a local radio morning show out there. Glad to see, as a fellow radio guy, representing radio there. And they did this. They had the morning show hosts dressed up as like a pastor and some other stuff to officiate the whole wedding. And I think this is just a beautiful union between a man and his 1971 Ford Falcon. And it's also genius. And here's why. Because, yes, Valentine's Day, I guess, did happen this month. Yes, it has now happened. We are now past Valentine's Day. But this is an out for all of us single guys on Valentine's Day. I mean, really, think about this, okay? It's mind-blowing, the level of genius that is being portrayed here. So let me put it like this. So instead of another depressing Valentine's Day spent working in the garage on your car by yourself, meanwhile, of course, all your couple friends are posting pictures on social media, rubbing it in, obviously. You too now, though. Okay, you too, if you choose to marry your car, can now say you're spending Valentine's Day with your significant other. And it's even better than that because you're still making progress on your project car. I mean, come on, that's brilliant. It's a win-win. There are no losers in this situation. You might say, but yeah, what if I want a family? Okay, all right, hear me out. It doesn't mean that you can't also have a family because let me put it this way. You could adopt a couple of motorcycles perhaps as children. I mean, really, if you marry a car, I don't see any reason why adopting a couple of two-wheelers isn't also an option there. And in fact, I think that's also a great option because now you can also say that not only are you maybe spending Valentine's Day with your significant other, you're going out on the weekend and spending some time with the family. That has a much better ring to it than, yeah, I'm going to go work on my cars in the garage that don't run, and maybe I'll tinker on the motorcycle a little bit. See, there's a difference in the contrast there of what you can do. And by the way, I do keep saying you. I don't mean to single you out in this case. Of course, I'm definitely not talking about myself here. Not at all. I wouldn't do any of that at all. So it does bring me to an interesting question, though, because I got to think about this. Does it mean that you could have more cars in Utah? I wonder. Anyway, congrats to the newlywed couple, of course. May their marriage be enduring and filled with enjoyment and possibly burnouts and Sunday cruises. or burnouts during the Sunday cruises. That's also acceptable. So anyway, I think this is genius. In fact, I think I should officiate some of these as an automotive talk show host. I think I could actually officiate some of these weddings, though. I'm not ordained. I'm not a minister, so maybe not. Maybe if you do get married to your car, maybe I can be your best man. How about that? Let's do an arrangement like that. And then we can do like wedding burnouts or something. I've actually had listeners send me wedding burnouts. It was a while back. It was probably maybe a year and a half ago. A guy got married, and him and his wife, he did not marry the car, but him and his wife both got into his Camaro in front of the altar there. And the altar was like it was like there was a road kind of right in front of it in this outdoor wedding venue. And they get there, and then he starts doing these like smoky burnouts and donuts to celebrate his marriage. So if you've done that, send it into my show. I'll play it as a car sound here. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Another love story I want to get to, sort of making this a Valentine's Day themed segment, which is also, I guess, loving a car and enjoying a car. And this comes from Japan. And I think we can only hope to, love and enjoy a car as much as this lady did. 80-year-old grandma in Japan has spent, according to and Hat Tip the Drive, has spent the last 25 years driving to the grocery store and back in her mint FD RX-7. Yeah, okay. I know my muscle car guys out there, this isn't maybe your cup of tea, but come on, even if you're a muscle car guy, go look at an FD RX-7 and tell me that is not a beautiful car. The FD RX-7 was the last generation of RX-7. It was before the RX-8 thing that really nobody liked. They're actually not bad cars, but no one really liked them. And I understand why, because you have a classic like the FD now, a modern classic, and you follow it up with the RX-8, and it just doesn't even compare. But this lady, she bought this RX-7 brand new 25 years ago. She says after her son happened to be watching an anime called Initial D. If you like cars, you may be familiar with that. And she saw the FD in the anime, in the cartoon. She saw it there and said, gosh, that's a pretty car. I'd like to own one of those. So, she went out and bought one. Great idea, by the way. Absolutely great idea. And she's loved it immensely, but she's only put about 48,000 miles on it in 25 years. So it's really low mileage. You know what they say, whenever you go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and it's like, grandma driven, only driven to church on Sundays and maybe to get groceries. And usually that's not true. That actually is usually code for like someone's done a lot of burnouts with it and has done a lot of horrible things to it. That's like code for that. You should actually run if someone says that. But in this case, it's actually true. And she just turned 80. She decided to turn in her driver's license and also sell the car. And when she announced that she was going to sell the car, she was immediately inundated with like 400 emails of people offering to buy the car for ludicrous sums of money because it's a low mile, one owner, actual grandma driven RX-7, FD RX-7. And she decided, okay, I can't deal with all these offers here. I'm going to sell it back to Mazda. And they did a whole thing to make this really special. James, by the way, if you're working on the video here, go ahead and throw some B-roll in. It's all in Japanese, so it doesn't make sense for me to run it on the radio. But for the video, you can just see it running here of the car and of her. They did a whole ceremony where the president of Mazda gave her a letter and a sketch done by one of Mazda's head designers of her car. And it was just something really cool. I think, it goes to show that car people there could be a lot of different car people. We can vary greatly. And this 80-year-old grandma really loved her FD RX-7. And she drove it all the time. A manual, by the way, as a manual. I mean, that's really good. So really happy ending right there. We all love cars. Whether you maybe just have a car and drive it, we all like getting out on the road and seeing the open country with it. So, hey, thanks for listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I'll talk to you next week right here